Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm so excited to be here today. I have a rock star of an athlete and human being in the house, the Matt Brown. I'm going to read his bio really quick and then we'll get him on the mic. But this conversation is a long time coming. We're going to talk about second chances, resilience today. And this dude's done it all. So without further ado, I'm welcoming UFC legend Matt the Immortal Brown, who is currently tied for the most knockouts, 12 in UFC history, and holds a record for most finishes, knockouts, and fights in UFC welterweight history. He was a contestant on The Ultimate Fighter Season 7 and has dedicated his life to the pursuit of martial arts and fitness. In his early 20s, Matt survived a heroin overdose and many other near-death experiences. All of this, along with his fighting reputation, led his friends dubbing him with his eventual fighter nickname, the Immortal. Matt, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila.
13 knockouts.
13. I was going to say, I was wondering if this was updated. My bad. 13 knockouts. We can't leave that one hanging.
Yeah, actually, I think 14.
14?
Yeah, I'm tied for the record. I think it's 14 now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And
I can't keep track. I knock out too many people.
Well, you and me both, I guess. Holy cow. That I don't exist very well in the fighting space. In fact, Matt and I crossed paths. We were doing some business together for another client, and he was a phenomenal ambassador. I'm always lucky to get to work with some of the best humans when I'm working with different marketing companies. But this dude was super humble and stood out. I've worked with thousands of people, more on the human side than the athlete side. And I know it's hard to believe because you've accomplished so many great things, but I'm excited today to talk about the life journey, the fitness journey, and then, kind of how you've just overcome so much, but how now all the impact you're doing, especially with your fight school and what you're doing for the kiddos. So before we go, I'll inundate you with all the questions. Tell us about young Matt.
Oh, like how young?
I mean, however young you want to go. Would you kind of think like the journey really started for you?
Well, I was a very good kid when I was really young. I was the hallmark child, what every mother would love to have for a child. And I think I was a smart kid. I grew up in a machine shop, actually. My dad owned a machine shop, so I kind of grew up in there working on things. Very, very small town population. Last I checked on Wikipedia was 200. So
wow.
When I was growing up, it was probably 100 or whatever. A very, very small town. And, rode dirt bikes, went fishing, and got in a lot of trouble. But, I was a really, really good kid. Like when I say get in trouble, like, mom would say be home before the street lights come on, and I'd come home a little late, like things like that. But
the good old days.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was a very, very good kid, and grew up very, traditional, conservative, old school style. Got spanked, and dinner was ready every night, and ate lots of biscuits and gravy for breakfast.
Nice.
And then around the time I was like a teenager, I kind of started just really disliking the path of everyone around me, and kind of where I seen where this was going. I always felt like I was just meant for bigger things, but I didn't necessarily see a path out of that. And I felt like everyone around me, I guess I didn't really feel at the time, but looking back, like everybody around me was kind of holding me back. Like, you're in a small town. This is what you do. Like, stop dreaming so big, stop thinking of all this other shit. And I think that kind of negativity kind of led me down. And a lot of people also don't realize how much alcohol and drugs are in these small towns. They look so quaint and sweet from the outside, but on the inside, like, there's a lot of losers in there, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So I decided that was my path for a while, and kind of quit doing sports around. I was always a star athlete, a star in a pool of 10 other kids.
But, we'll take it.
Yeah, but I did well. And like I said, I just wanted more than that, but that negativity kind of led me towards alcohol and partying, and being the extreme person that I was then. maybe still am to some extent. It just went to the extreme. I wasn't necessarily like a bad kid, even though I was hanging around all the bad people. I didn't necessarily fit in with them either. But it took me down the wrong path. Ended up going to jail a bunch of times and going drugs, alcohol, partying, eventually overdosing, and then eventually found the martial arts and said, "Fuck that! This is what I like," and never looked back.
Do you think, I read in doing some of this research, you said overdosing was one of the best things that ever happened to you. Do you think that was like the pivotal thing that you needed? Because a lot of bad things happen, like really intense thing to people, but they don't have the wherewithal or the pull or the spirituality or something to like make the right step in the right direction. If that was the breakdown and breakthrough, what was it really what provided that clarity to push you in that right direction?
That wasn't actually the pivotal moment.
Okay.
I didn't actually think it was that big of a deal. Like I was just kind of embarrassed, like I didn't really want to tell anyone. I was like very ashamed, from even the small amount of people that was around at the time. And it was just embarrassing, more than anything. But it wasn't like something profound that hit me then, like, oh, I'm never doing that again. Instead it was more like, okay, I'm never doing heroin again, but like cocaine's all right, right?
Right.
So it wasn't, I wasn't a very smart street kid, right? So that wasn't really pivotal for me. The pivotal moment was when I walked in a martial arts gym.
Okay.
That was it. Before that, it was, I kind of knew that the path that I was on wasn't me, but I didn't know a different path either. I'd work some job or something, like knowing that, like, I'm just trying to get a paycheck, or this is garbage, and again, until I walked into a martial arts gym, like nothing else really did it for me.
That's amazing. Clearly I'm an advocate for sports and fitness, and I attribute, I had 3 younger brothers, so we actually watched you at some point on the reality show Ultimate Fighter, and it's funny how universe works and certain things slip through, but I remember watching that show and being like, that was kind of my first exposure to what mixed martial arts and MMA was. Like my brothers did like karate growing up. I didn't do that. I did almost everything else they did, but I didn't really get it. Did you have exposure to MMA and fighting or anything growing up, or was this like brand new when you saw it?
No. I mean, I got a lot of fights growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Just because, again, like a small town like that, like everybody fights. Like it's like Lord of the Flies. Like we're trying to figure out who's the dominant. There's like there's a battle for hierarchy every day in a small town like that. Again, you're just trying to be the big fish in that small pond, right?
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to be a part of all those things growing up. But I wanted to do karate or judo or whatever, and again, coming from a very, very traditionally conservative family, they were like, no, that's the evil stuff. Like, you don't need that stuff. It's bad for you, things like that. Like you need to go to church and work your job and, bale hay.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine.
The dream.
Yeah. Like that, exactly. Right. That's the whole thing. It's like, that's what I'm dreaming, Mom. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. So how does the family feel about all this now? Like fast forward X amount of years, the success, the ride, all of it. Like how are they what's the opinion now?
Well, my dad passed away in 2009. So he only got to see the beginning. I got on the Ultimate Fighter in 2008. So he only got to see the beginning. But before that, he was happy that I was finally doing something that he could be proud of. Right. And then I was doing something to keep me out of trouble and something like I had direction in my life. Like he was glad to see that. Obviously, like when he was growing up, there wasn't like UFC around or anything. So he didn't, there was no opportunity for that. My mom never has been a promoter of it, and she still is not. And she still asks me all the time, like, when are you going to retire? When are you going to quit doing this? Like, you're going to die in there someday, So, but she has come to fights and she, she just doesn't like to talk about it a lot. She's, it's kind of like, that's what my one crazy son does,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I asked this specifically because I think it's so funny. We can come from our families and be of the same DNA and yet still be so different. And then be calling and kind of, thankfully nowadays there's more conversations and there's tools to have those conversations, but family's always hard. And I think in such a divided society, we can always bond over wherever you come from, whatever you believe. Family is tough, and we all navigate that differently. But I think it's important for us as individuals to appreciate family, but then go back to understanding that we truly are individuals, and we have different motivators, we have different callings, we have different purposes. And I think it's hard as a young person to understand that, especially if what you're about to do doesn't exist yet. It's not even in the mix.
Yeah.
Much of what I do right now was never a thing. But I knew I didn't want to do the path that was in front of me. So I really identify with what you're saying, just in a different capacity. But I think you're such a perfect role model of, it might not even be there yet, but you have to keep moving forward. And I honestly think even the fighting, like, kind of prepared you in some capacity for this, larger journey ahead. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And to your point, it's interesting because, like, my family is so diverse, actually. My older brother is a lawyer and works for a lot of, like, Republicans. My younger brother is an artist, and he lived in LA for a long time, and he's the most liberal person that I've ever met.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
And I'm, like, in the middle, and I'm a fighter.
God bless your parents. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
How was family Christmas? Not to interrupt you.
We've had some intense family Christmases.
Yeah, us too. Okay.
I'm in the middle, just like, they're very, like, politically driven people,
Sure.
and I'm always in the middle, like, hey, you guys are, like, why are you guys talking about it?
Yeah.
You're not gonna switch the other person's opinion. Shut the hell up. Like,
Yeah.
so, but no, that's a great point. And to that point, that's the most beautiful thing, one of the most beautiful things about martial arts, in my opinion. Fitness, martial arts, weightlifting, sports in general, is when we're on those mats, when we're on the field, when we're lifting together, you can have every group, every diverse race, religion in there, and we're all in here together doing something powerfully, and we're all bonding around this thing.
Yes.
And so diversity, is a problem out in the outside world a lot. In there, it's a great thing. We love having different people, different looks, and it brings people together. And that, to me, is one of the special things about sports and particularly martial arts, because, like, I might, not maybe, someone might hate, like, maybe some white supremacist comes in, and then he gets his ass kicked by a black dude, and he's like, oh, well, I guess you're as human as me. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's like, we can all get along in here. Like, it's who comes in here the most, who puts in the most sweat, who bleeds the most. It's not about where you come from or who you are.
Amen. I couldn't agree with you more. And some of my best friends have come through collegiate lacrosse and then CrossFit. I was lucky to compete as an adult, air quotes on adult, but you cross people you wouldn't cross paths with normally. And I think that one of the biggest problems in our world is just such a lack of exposure. When you have upfront close exposure to forgetting about the conversations of belief or whatever, but you get to train or work alongside or walk alongside someone different than you get to see them as a human. And then you have exposure to the way they walk through life, and you understand that shit's not that different. Like, we're all kind of facing the same crap at the end of the day.
Yeah, we all bleed the same blood, right? We all breathe the same goddamn air. And yeah, it is so frustrating, when you see these people, and it's on TV or social media or whatever, hateful people or divisive people, and you're just like, bro, get in a fucking gym, man. Grow the hell up. Like when that dude kicks your ass and taps you out, and then you guys bleed and sweat together more, like, you guys would be best friends.
Yeah. Do you now, and this is curious, because I've known some fighters, and then I grew up with brothers, so they're always doing the most, too, military. And they didn't really get in fights, but I've had, being a fitness person, I'm around, other masculine, I'm here to prove something men, and they're kind of the ones starting stuff on the outside. But then my fighters are never fighting outside the gym. Is that, like, true to, like, the culture? Or, like, unpack that a little bit for me.
That's interesting, because I know some, I know some of both, right?
Okay.
And it depends on what you call fighting too, right? Like I have certain friends, like, we'll kind of get after it a little bit, but we're, like, friends after too. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But overall, I think for the most part, when you're a professional fighter, especially, someone at my level, I've dealt with so many body types, so many different types of people. My jiu-jitsu instructor, for instance, when I first met him, he was about 140 pounds, over 6 feet tall.
Whoa.
As the biggest dork you ever seen. We used to make fun of him when we were lifting because like he was like knock-kneed and
That's
but
thin.
yeah, I mean he was just scrawny, like had was very socially awkward, all these like just a nerd through and through. And he'll admit it too. But then we get on the mats and this dude would fuck you up.
Okay.
And me too. Like he would fuck me up. I thought I would. No, because he was just skilled, right? He put in the time.
Gotcha.
And, a lot of mental too, though. That's what made him put in the time because he got bullied in school a lot, got picked on. He's from West Virginia, so he's a unique kid. He's not a hillbilly by any means. He's not a West Virginia type that you would think at all, right? So he got bullied a lot. So he gravitated towards jiu-jitsu. He learned it very well, learned it very quickly. And so when we see people like that, for instance, it's like when you're on the streets, like you don't know who you're dealing with. So like, I'm not trying to fight you. I don't know what I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? So I have a whole new respect for like humans in general, right? It's not just, like you act like you're weak or whatever. So you're probably weak. Like you might have something in there that I don't know about.
Exactly.
So that, I think that is one of the things. And when you get humbled by, like, for instance, him, like a 6 foot dweeb, and again, he would admit, like he would tell you, I was a dweeb, right?
Yeah.
When you get humbled by someone like that, like that's a shot to your ego that you're not used to taking. So we get it all out in the gym all the time. Like, we get beat up by guys. And I'll give you a good example. Like I have guys come into my gym all the time to say they want to be professional fighters, right? Or they want to, what do I got to do to get to UFC, right? And I usually the first day I'll put them with this kid that trains at our gym who's 16 years old at this point. And I've been doing this since he was about 14, and he'll beat the hell out of him. Nice. And I'm like, now, are you sure you still want to be a fighter? Right? like how's those UFC dreams looking now?
Yeah.
So I say you don't know what you're dealing with. So
yeah. What percentage of humans say yes after getting whooped by the 16-year-old, do you think?
0 so far.
Seriously? Is that big of a like?
I've had some come back. I mean, they'll come back and keep training or whatever.
Yeah.
And, some like have the wherewithal to gain respect out of that.
Yeah.
And have a new respect for the martial arts and the power that mechanical leverage and intelligence and human chess could bring.
Yeah.
But I'd say I've had 0 come after and say, oh yeah, I still want to fight in the UFC. It's like,
okay.
Yeah, it's worked out very well actually. And he's a savage kid too. Like I'm not
sounds like it.
Yeah. A little story about him, for instance, a great kid. Ohio has one of the best wrestling states there is. His second year of wrestling, he'd only wrestled for 2 years. This was actually this past season. I say he started when he was 14, actually. Never wrestled before a day in his life. And he made it, he qualified for the state tournament, the states here in Ohio, which is one of the most difficult states in America.
Yeah.
They didn't let him compete because they found out that he had a broken elbow in the last 2 matches that in districts. He should have been disqualified in districts because he literally broke his elbow and kept competing through the last 2 matches.
Oh my God. What is this human's background? Like, is there intrinsic motivators? Like, tell me a little bit more.
Well, he is autistic and he's pretty far on the spectrum. He doesn't have a very good social life. He doesn't have any other hobbies or anything, but martial arts is the one thing that has brought focus into his life. And when like I said, he started when he was 14, and he would come into the gym after school and at about 4:00, and he would stay till closing, and I would have to kick him out. And then after a while, we started to trust him, and we say, "Hey, you can just stay." Until we got we ended up getting some security cameras installed, so I would watch and see like how long he's staying there. And it would be till like 11 or midnight sometimes.
What?
And this kid would be training hard the whole time. And his dad would just sit outside and wait on him. And I talked to his dad one day and I said, man, like, you got to do something. Like, he's going to get burned out. Like, he's got to do something else. He's going to get injured, right? Something. And his dad said his whole life he's tried everything that he can. He said he literally buys him like Xboxes and PlayStations. He's like, just play this game for a little bit, and the kid will just go out back and hit the bag. And,
oh my God, I love it. I have the chills. Dude, so I've coached for my whole life, but 10 years of high school and, had a lacrosse company after. I love coaching all my kids, but when I get the ones that just bleed it and they just want to learn so bad and they're just in it and they're happy to be there, it is the best thing in the world as a coach. Like, does this guy bring you soul fuel as a coach and a gym owner?
Oh God, yes. Yeah. That's, he's one of those kids that, like during COVID, for instance, and, some people agree, disagree, whatever, but I was like, I'm not fucking shutting down. Like, we have to, this is the kind of kid that has to have this. Yeah. I think I shut down like 2 or 3 days or something because I was like, dude, zombie apocalypse, we're all gonna die. And I was like, well, but then I would get, calls from, not him specifically, but, people like him, and they're like, bro, like, my mental health relies on this, man. What am I going to do? And I'm like, bro, like, I didn't know that it was like that. So, I said, I'm not fucking shut down. We hung banners over the windows and, kept it on and kept these kids, kept their mental health in check.
That's so awesome. I mean, these are all just metaphors. I think the running theme of this convo, unintentionally so, will be like, never judge a book by its cover, because you just never know what's truly going on, what skills people have, what they don't have, if they look a certain way. It's all kind of like, you got to just get more intel to really evaluate the situation and then make your own choices, whether it's, COVID in a gym, working with a specific athlete, not fighting somebody on the street. Like, you just got to get the intel and of what's going on. I will say, as a 42-year-old athlete, or still trying to be like you.
Same age as me.
Yeah. You get smarter with your body because it takes longer to recover and everything else. But you get smarter with your brain too, because you get so much more emotionally attached, I think, to your decisions. I am curious, how are you hanging in it at 42? Like, what are you doing with your body to like keep it in shape and not get burned out yourself?
I'll tell you, the number one thing that has probably helped my body more than anything else is I do tons of sauna work now.
Okay. Like just infrared sauna or what?
So infrared is not a sauna.
Okay.
I hate that they even call it a sauna, because it's not a sauna.
Lay down the truth here. Let's give it to us.
Yeah. A hot sauna is a sauna, right? Like, so I like, if you get a really good sauna, you have I think it's called Loidli. I don't know exactly how to say it, but like where you put the water on.
Yeah. Like the OG saunas.
Yes. Like, for me, it's the best thing I've ever done for my body. I do it usually 3 to 4 times a week at least. And, I've gotten really good at it. We go really hard. Like, my guys come over and they're like, God, man, like, your recovery's harder than a workout, and
so you like stay in it for a long time, or like, what is the actual hard part? And is it like super, super hot? Like, is there a temperature you stick to?
Yeah. I usually go above 190.
Oh, okay.
And then from there, I don't even look at the temperature as long as it's above 190. Because once I pour the water on, like, it'll get really, really hot. Like, the steam, like, I pour tons and tons of water on it. But I do stretching in there. I do a lot of stuff for my back, because that's been my biggest bane of my existence, has been my back. I have a terrible spine. But it's helped a ton. So I'll do like yoga in there, all these different things. And of course, like, I do all the regular stuff, rolling out, and I do a lot of FRC. I think that's a great thing. Lacrosse balls, massage guns. Yeah. I have a massage chair in my living room. I get real massages.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, none of it to me compares to the regular sauna work that I do. Like, that has been absolute game changer for me.
When did you start that?
Probably like regularly, like less than a year ago.
Oh, dang. Well, so much has changed in like the recovery space in the past 20 years. Like it's the only reason I knew a lot about recovery stuff was because of CrossFit, and people in CrossFit have
Yeah.
money, so they'll spend for anything. So everybody markets like the high end human optimization stuff to us. And then my work kind of went that way, but I didn't like collegiate lacrosse, competing at the games. We didn't really have a lot of this stuff until I was way later in life, which I'm grateful to have it now. How do you feel about like cold tubs? Do you do contrast or anything, or is it just straight up heat?
So I do the contrast fairly regularly, but I don't actually think the ice does much of anything for me.
Okay.
I've done, well, remember Muscle Farm, they used to have a cold
yeah.
tub there, right? Like they had the
Yeah.
cold tub. So I got so good at that cold tub because I lived like 2 minutes from the facility there. And
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, so I would go in that cold tub every day. I had a key to the facility. I would go in there every day. I built up to the cold tub was around 40 to 43 degrees, and I was sitting there for 20, 25 minutes at a time.
Okay.
Like, I got to the point where it wasn't even miserable anymore. I was just sitting there and chill like Wim fucking Hof.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel a single difference in my joints, in my muscles, nothing, right? So I'm not as nearly as big of a believer on the cold as I am the hot. Now, maybe there's something happening that I don't know about, right? Like I'm not a scientist, I don't know, but there hasn't been a ton of research on it either, I don't think. But so maybe there's some things happening, but the hot, like I know for a fact, like I sleep better. That's the other part that I would add for my recovery. Everybody talks about recovery this, recovery that, and from my experience, from what I've seen, when I ask them about their sleep, they don't have a real sleep routine, sleep patterns, right? So for me, the sauna would be more for like the joints and the movement ability, and a couple other benefits too. But the sleep is the true recovery, and the sauna has helped the sleep shit ton too. So I have a sauna outside that I use almost every night before I go to sleep, and
nice.
And now I have an entire sleep routine. So I have like blacked out windows. I have a really nice mattress. I make sure the room's nice and cold. I have an exact time that I go to sleep. I have a routine before I put the phone downstairs, come upstairs at the specific time, wake up at a specific time, which is really just natural now. I don't even have to have any alarms or anything. Read for a certain time, do all these little different things.
Yeah.
And those two things have helped my recovery more than anything else.
I completely believe that. So also not a doctor or scientist, but I would say just like nutrition and everything else, everyone's always got a prescription, but I think every human's different. And if ice works for you or if heat works for you, I really would just tell for people like try it all. You got to see what works specifically for your situation. Cause ice baths actually worked really well for me, but heat does work, but I do that more pre-workout. So do you train like fuel and then sauna?
So you're doing it backwards, actually.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing a sauna. I'll just do like heat pads or even like my car seat heaters if I'm late to the gym.
Pre-workout, right?
Yeah.
So even that would be still. It's very funny, and I just learned this recently. My friend is an expert on. He does these retreats and teaches all over the country. He's a former NFL player, but he teaches on sauna, ice bath, and breath work, right? And I never knew this, but actually pre-workout you should do cold.
Oh, okay.
Right. It sounds counterintuitive, right? But the reason behind it is because now your body is going to try to heat itself back up. So when you go, and also it's going to release some dopamine and norepinephrine or whatever all that stuff's called, all the stimulating hormones in your brain.
Right.
I guess they're hormones. I don't know. I'm not a scientist at all. But
we gotcha.
But you get the point, right? So it releases all these things, and your body's trying to heat up naturally. So when you actually start to warm up, your body's going to heat itself up much quicker and more efficiently, and it prepares the body for that. So the protocol now, like that he suggests, and most high-level like professors and stuff that I talk to suggest, is in the morning or pre-workout, you do the ice, and then post-workout, you actually do the sauna, and that's going to start what do they call it? Bringing you down, like deregulating. And you do some breath work with it to help you deregulate while still pumping blood to all your muscles and opening your veins and arteries and everything so that you actually recover quicker for the next session.
See, I think
And
that makes complete sense. Do you train in the morning or in the night?
both.
Or about? Oh, so you're still doing 2 days?
Oh yeah, I do 2 days
Yeah,
probably.
sir.
I measured it for a couple years, around 300 days a year.
Oh my God. That okay. So I usually train in the morning. I've heard the cold showers. I have a host of friends that like bought freezers from Costco and do the ice bath in the morning.
Mhm.
And now you can buy super expensive ones on Instagram. Sometimes I'll do the cold shower, but usually I'm just going with the temperature of the outside. I'll try that though. Massive advocate for everything you just said about sleep. I think people don't realize that sometimes the solutions are within our fingertips. It doesn't even take a lot. It's just like
Yeah.
some lifestyle habits that can really help. But I am curious. Tell me about the nutrition because that is like another massive variable. You don't have to go into the weeds on this. But
Mhm.
has that changed over the years as you've learned about your body or age or anything like that? Because I do think that's another key piece of whether you're competing to train or training to compete or not, just lifestyle, the nutrition piece is really big.
It hasn't changed a lot over the years.
Okay.
I've always been extremely simple with my diet, and I think it's the most simplest thing ever that people overcomplicate so damn much that it drives me up the wall when people ask me, "Oh, what should I be eating?" I eat rice and chicken, rice and protein at almost every meal,
Okay. No vegetables?
and vegetables. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Usually I only eat vegetables once a day because, to be honest, I'm kind of like a kid and I don't like vegetables. So I prefer, more vitamins from fruits. I just like fruits more. So,
Okay.
but the staple of every single meal is rice and protein. In the morning, it's rice and eggs. In the afternoon, usually like rice and chicken. In the evening, I've actually become a huge fan of tofu, which is kind of
Oh,
silly,
okay.
but I like rice and beef in the evenings usually the most. But any protein, right? Like, throw whatever tastes good to you in there, put some freaking good sauce on it, and you got a simple meal. And I guess that I've just been blessed where, I'm a simple person and just don't care. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not like craving for spaghetti one night or steak dinners and mashed potatoes. Like, I'm very, very happy and content with rice and chicken. And then when it comes to like, if I go on vacation or if I'm post fight for a couple weeks, like if I relax, right? If I relax my diet for a while, then I don't even think about it, right? Because I
Yeah.
know that I have that staple, that base that I'm easily going to go back to and I'm going to enjoy it and love it. So when I relax, I'll eat whatever the hell I want. I'll eat
Yeah.
burgers, ice cream. Um, but it's easy when you stay on that, the vast majority of the time, like 90% of the time, people call it dieting. I'm not dieting. I'm just eating the way that I like to eat.
Yeah. You got to fuel the machine. I agree with that. I even, again, CrossFitters, we can get way into the weeds on macros and change your shoes to
Yeah.
be a better athlete and all the things. And being a longtime athlete, I never really bought into it. Even go to the games. I never did macros. I did it last year just to see, just because I was playing with some systems. I was toying with the idea of trying to do masters again and see what I could manipulate to be better. And I did actually like it just for the time being. And it was kind of cool to see some data and just some changes. But long term, my personality just doesn't fit like that. I'm kind of like you, or if I just know what I'm normally do, and then if I have my free time, I have my free time. It's hard for me to be super structured. But it was cool to at least try it and see.
What did
But
you
I
try?
just counting my macros and doing different percentages
Oh,
and like
counting it.
yeah, counting them and like weighing my food and doing that, which if you knew me well, that is so not my personality to like bust out a scale and, weigh my chicken. And that's just not what it is. But it was kind of cool to manipulate the data, test my body fat, see what it was, but certainly not long term. But
Yeah.
I would suggest for anyone, if you're curious, try it, see how it is. But I would say for anyone, know that none of that super stringent, hardcore, lifestyle is really doable for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I deal with a lot of people that come into my gym that maybe they are overweight or maybe they do have eating issues and these things. And then I don't say to them, just eat rice and chicken, motherfucker,
Right.
right? So, so but what I do teach them is like, you don't have to pick a diet, so to speak, because all these diets, I've tried a lot of different diets. I actually did keto for
Okay.
almost 2 years, like full keto, and I fought on it a few times. Um, and then come find out, there's a lot of problems with that, right?
Yeah.
I got knocked out, and the one time in my life I've been knocked out, and so
Do you feel
I
like your
could,
energy was lower, like you're more lethargic? Like what was the
no,
vibe with it?
I felt great 90% of the time. But what I found was in the fights around the third round, then I would start getting lethargic and slow and just didn't have that last little juice. And I
Yep.
coincidentally got knocked out in the third round. So it's the only time
Yeah.
I've been knocked out in my life. So, not making excuses and, not saying that that's necessarily what it was. Like he was a good fighter. So, it is what it is. So when I tell the guys that come in, I say what you need to pick is what is going to be sustainable. Like, don't do a diet. Like, pick a diet that you're going to do for 6 months or a year. Pick something you can do 20 years from now,
Yeah.
and build something out. Actually, I have a nutritionist. I have a nutrition company called Immortal Diet Optimization, which is kind of kicked off and kind of building up little by little, working with fighters mainly. But and that's what we tell them all is like, pick what you can sustain. Like, that's what is far more important than crashing down, 10, 15, 20 pounds or something, is can you maintain this happiness of lifestyle 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when you're in a nursing home, like, can you still be eating the same diet?
Yeah.
And I know most people can't do that with rice and chicken. That's why I don't tell them that. Right. So I will be able to do that personally.
Right. How do you like, what's good advice for parents with kids? Because then, kids start eating like Rice Krispie treats and Cheerios, and I have dogs, I don't have kids, so I don't have to fully deal with this. But I hear this in the gym all the time. Well, my kid was eating mac and cheese. Da, da, da. Like, how do you handle that with your crew?
Well, that kind of gets deep into the weeds of a lot of things. I think that's a lack of parenting to begin with. And I would start with, it always starts with this. And I've had people ask me these exact questions, like, hey, yeah, man, my kid won't listen to me. I'm telling him he's eating like this. And usually it's, some fat slob telling me this. And I'm like, look at yourself, motherfucker. Would you listen to you? Like,
Yeah.
you need to build yourself to the person that your kids will aspire to be. If you are not that, then why would they listen to you?
Yeah.
So how about you take care of your damn self first, and then you tell your kids what to do. And when they see that you are now a powerful presence in the household, they will listen.
Yeah.
And then to go beyond that, then it comes into, again, so you have to be strong yourself to show up for your kids. And then you can't be a lazy parent. The lazy parents give them mac and cheese. Like, why okay, you're going to complain about your kid eating mac and cheese. Why do you have mac and cheese an option available to them? Like, my kids know when they come to my house, like, I'm divorced. So they, when they go to their moms, they have a completely different situation, but they know when they come to my house, they have these options, and that's it.
Yeah.
And, that's what they fucking eat, and it's like, dude, if you want to go be a soft fat kid, you can do it somewhere else. In my house, you're going to eat the way that you should be eating. And that doesn't mean I don't take them out for ice cream. And that doesn't mean that, we don't enjoy our lives and, I'm like force feeding them or anything.
Chicken and rice in the sauna right now.
My kids love chicken and rice, and they love the sauna. So,
yeah.
Maybe I'm a little lucky on that. But well, I say maybe I'm lucky, but I also think it's because of the culture that I've raised them around. Like, this is what they know at my house. This is what they expect, and they know, like, you don't mess with dad, and dad's gonna bring healthy food, and that's going to be our option. And they know that if they do the right things, they will get rewarded with more fun things.
I love it.
So to finish with that, it's like, these people, it's such a terrible cultural thing, that the way that we are raising our kids these days. And I could go on long rants about that. It's absolute travesty what we're doing to these kids.
I could not agree more. And this is why I started Turmeric and Tequila, the podcast, not about food, not about drink. just about questioning a better way and the juxtaposition of being all things and kind of doing your own path. But mostly it's about letting go of what you're supposed to do and start taking personal responsibility for yourself and being someone that, our marketing, branding, everything is influencers now. And it's not just about naked people on Instagram. It's about finding leaders to align with companies or voices or causes that they believe in. And collectively we can, share what we're passionate about. But the caveat with that is my job was to find leaders like yourself that were authentically showing up in life outside of the marketing agenda or whatever it was, because I knew first and foremost, coaching all these years, young kiddos, how impressionable they were and my own personal responsibilities. If I don't find good humans really telling the truth and holding themselves accountable, it doesn't matter how I coach them or what I say or what I do or how we can paint this pretty picture marketing wise or life wise. You got to find the ones that get the joke that it's about personal responsibility first and then everything else. And coaching young girls and parents that never played women's lacrosse was hard. I would just gracefully say, bottom line, attitude reflects leadership. So if you're not stepping through as a leader, like you're going to get the shitty attitude. And not being a parent, that landed sometimes and sometimes it didn't. But it is what it is. Do parents and stuff resist on your straightforwardness or like laying it down? Or do they get the joke on what you're saying?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
They resist on it. Yeah. They
Okay.
don't all get it. There's some that resist, but owning a martial arts gym, you see some of the worst, to be honest. And it's a big problem that we have all the time that we always have to deal with is that they bring their kids in, a lot of them very undisciplined, very bad kids, and they bring them to us to fix their kid. Yeah. And it was something, when I first started teaching kids classes at my gym, which I do sometimes now and not all the time. But when I first started teaching, it actually helped me be a better parent too, because realizing here's what happens is class starts and then, these kids are good for a minute and then they start acting up little by little. Right. And then you see a lot of kids coaches, either start yelling at them or getting frustrated. A lot of different bad things can happen. Right. And the first thing I tell all of my kids coaches is when your class starts acting up, what the natural reaction to do is to point the finger at them and tell them to, stop doing whatever they're doing. What you need to do is point the finger at yourself and say, what am I doing to allow this to happen and why, and create this environment. I'm the leader. I'm the one that created this.
Yep.
And I think that's something that parents should think about too, right? If your kid's acting out, if he's being bad, he's undisciplined or not following instructions, you have to look internally and say, why is the kid doing that? Why does he feel like comfortable to be doing this?
Amen.
And I think that's where it all starts. And that's that's just where everything starts. Everything is within. So
I agree. Well, the funny thing is we hear so much about kids in social media, which again, another piece I'm passionate about because there's a lot of trash out there, but there's also a lot of upside. But my thing is always like, I try and tell parents or people that I'm, my friends that have kids, I'm like, you got to understand, you are your kid's first influencer. So if you're worried about social media and what they're doing, they're drinking in and absorbing their environment and your behavior every single day. And even the stuff you think they're not picking up, don't worry about, said influencer that's naked saying XYZ, give her to the phone or do what you got to do. But you got to remember, you're in that role first. You're the one that they're modeling.
1,000%. And this is exactly what I was just talking about before, about you have to show up for your kid. And I just did a newsletter about this recently. I put out this weekly newsletter, and what I talked about was, kind of lost my train of thought. The fighting is known as a selfish sport. All the fighters say, "Oh, it's a selfish sport," right? They always say this. And I said, no, it's not a selfish sport. Selfish people are selfish. Those that take care of themselves first, that doesn't make you selfish. As long as you're using that in a positive manner to show up every day for your kids, right?
Yeah.
We have, as fighters, as athletes, even, as CrossFitters, whatever it is, you have a unique ability to strengthen yourself. But why are you strengthening yourself? Why do all this? If it's not to show up for your kids, then you are doing it selfishly. You should be doing it specifically to show up for your goddamn kids. The key, the meaning of life, in my opinion, is to give, right?
Yeah.
And that's what we're on the planet for. Just, my opinion, everybody's got their own meanings, whatever. But so building myself up to be able to give more is not a selfish thing.
Completely agree. My terminology would just to be useful. There's this great quote by Benjamin Franklin that says, I'd rather be said that he lived usefully than died rich. And it's because for some reason that rung to me as like a high school student. Cause I don't think there's any, even if you have all the money or whatever, you're, a leader with appointed leadership, it doesn't really matter. You don't feel that purpose and that usefulness if you're not giving, serving, doing something that's bigger than yourself. And the irony of just what you just said, and I agree with, is that starts with you. You have to start it with you, or that first step nothing else works after that if you're not taking care of the leader. Like, it's got to start there.
That's a great quote, because there's a lot of rich people that are not useful.
100%. In fact, they're
right? Destructive.
Yeah, they're taking us in the wrong direction. And ironically, they have the platform, the power, and all this other. We don't even have to go down that podcast hole. But on the flip side, though, I do think there's a lot of unsung heroes, like your professional career and the accolades and all the things you accomplished, but then that daily thing where you're working with 10, 20 kids, or one parent that has 5 kids, and this is why I believe in influencers, not because of marketing, just because of like the unrecognized power on the dailies, that if you're walking in an honorable path through life, so many more people are watching than you even know. If you have 0 followers, whatever, the way you walk to work, the way you go to school, the way you eat your breakfast, like your kids probably listen to you and follow your nutrition things, not because you're saying eating chicken and rice, because they see dad eating chicken and rice and getting in the sauna. And so it's just a lot of talking, but really like this behavior, I think speaks so much more loudly than all the things we can tell our young people or parents or whatever to do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Kids do what we do, not what we tell them to do, right?
Exactly. Well, on that note, tell me, because I want our athletes. I love that, you're a young kiddo figuring out a path. You get this opportunity to fight. It happens professionally. You have extraordinary success, family, the businesses, but you can't fight forever. And I hate when people say that to me. You can't compete forever. So I'm not telling you that, but I'm just saying on the flip side of that, you can build a base of business to be an entrepreneur, continue to be a leader. Tell me about some of the businesses and the things you're passionate about that maybe you did or didn't think of growing up that now you're leading.
Oh God, where do I even start with that? I mean, the gym is the obvious one, right? Like,
yeah.
Building this gym, ever since I ever started training, like I always had this idea that I wanted to own a gym. I wanted to, I wanted my own spot, right? But as I developed, throughout my career, my life, and especially after opening the gym, my motivations behind it changed, 180 degrees, right? Originally, it was about, I want to have other fighters, I don't want to have my spot, everybody come to me. And I think it was really like more of a ego booster thing, right? To have my own gym, have my name on the wall, put up my posters and all this shit. And then it wasn't very long after when COVID happened, right? And we shut down. And that was when I actually discovered how powerful all of this is. I had, for instance, had people offering to pay my rent. They're like, the way that our entire community at my gym came together, and like we had just alluded to before, with like some of the people talking about how powerful it was in their lives, it made me realize like what I'm doing, goes far beyond anything competition wise. So, so that's the clear and obvious one that has been very powerful for me. And there's always a balance between like making it a uber profitable business and making it something very small community driven, right? And I'm sure it's very similar in CrossFit. Like there's just a balance there that you have to always kind of toe the line of both, because we're not doing it for free either, right? Like I'm trying to make a living doing this shit. But I would say all of the other businesses that I have, which there's really only 2 other main ones, which would be my real estate business I do Airbnbs now, and my coffee business. Between those 2, I would have never, ever dreamed of having either one of those. So those aren't ones that are necessarily as fulfilling as like having a gym where I get
Right.
to meet people in person and see their growth in person or anything. But they're great businesses to have, and I would have never expected myself to own what I own or be doing what I do. So it's still a pretty cool thing.
See, that's amazing. And I think that sometimes, again, in society, we're taught like, go for this goal, get the medal, get all the accolades, and it's fulfilling to a point. And I was certainly never on a stage you were, but have some medals, have some accomplishments, but then coaching and seeing my kiddo score a goal, or, this little in between, or you really see life changes in young people or maybe older people, whatever, like that's the stuff that's really weaving the meaning in my life. And it's
Yeah.
not apparent. There's no award for it. Most people don't even notice, like there's no accolade. There's nothing but personal satisfaction, and yet it's more than enough. And I don't think I got that until way later in life. And I kind of wish our kids would get that as they chase some of these big goals and these like, revenue points or mile markers, that, enjoy the journey, but look for the rewards along the way that aren't really like touted or celebrated or anything else.
Yeah. And I don't know if they do this in CrossFit or any other sports, but in martial arts, one of the things that, we've been open for 5 years. So we only have, maybe 5 to 10 like OGs that have been there like the whole time, right? Since
Okay.
I first opened. And so we just recently started doing where, what the martial arts is all about is giving back, right? So these guys that have been there that long, I'm like, it's time. You guys have grown enough now. It's now your time. You have to start teaching others, or else your martial arts journey doesn't mean anything from here forward. Like your skills and your a level is high enough now that for you to progress any farther, we have to see your ability to teach this to others, or else it's all meaningless. So,
Gotta pass it on.
yeah. So to your point, that's kind of, I think martial arts again is just such a powerful thing in that sense. Like that's what we teach them to do is, once you reach a certain level, to get to the next level, you have to be passing it on.
That's awesome. We don't have anything formal like that. You can get your level 1 in CrossFit. Lacrosse, I was a coach because that's just how I made money on the side being in college and then afterwards. But I actually
There's
felt
money
like,
in lacrosse.
what's that?
There's money in lacrosse. I didn't know that.
I mean, well, there's more or less. The funny thing is it's like all rich white kids in lacrosse growing up. It's like private schools, whatever. I was lucky my public school had it. It's diversified slightly. And then fast forward, I somehow got into CrossFit and it's all more rich white people. So it was nice that I did marketing and branding, and it like both ones love, it's like cult-like community. And I say, I love both. I bleed both. But I'm also passionate about diversifying everything. So long story short, there's money-ish, nothing like, UFC TV revenue or anything like that. But there's some cult-like underground following, some brands that have done pretty well.
But there's not nearly as much money in the UFC as people would think.
Really?
Like anybody that follows the sport knows, like we're all underpaid. We don't. This is not a career path to choose.
Yeah.
The amount of I tell this to people all the time. Like if I put this much time, energy, sacrifice, dedication into anything else in the world, like I could have started at McDonald's, and if I put this kind of passion into it, I'd be the fucking CEO of McDonald's today.
Yeah.
I'd be making millions of dollars. But this one thing, it's like I still love it, but the ROI is just simply not there.
I totally hear that. Identify strongly. And sometimes the ROI doesn't fucking matter. You can be the CEO of McDonald's, out of shape, eating McDonald's, so outside of your core values and your authentic path that it would be like cancer. Like it'd be so off that you wouldn't have enough money to buy your path back to restart where you should have and stayed in it. And just
that's exactly right. Tony Robbins had the best speech about this I ever heard in my life, and that's the difference between success and fulfillment. And it's so powerful. And he used Robin Williams as the example where he was like, this guy had everything you could ever imagine in the world. He had all the success ever. And what did he do? He killed himself because he didn't have any fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's why I'm glad we have conversations like this so our kiddos have more access to these heavier conversations earlier, because I do think they're exposed to so much. But also the flip side of social media or podcasts or whatever is that there's real people talking about real things, and you can start to have this awareness so much earlier so you can stay on path, or you can not, be pulled to a direction or doing the shit you think you're supposed to be doing and XYZ. But I don't know. I couldn't agree with you more. I want to be mindful of our time. I always have a million more questions for my varsity humans, but hit us with any good words of advice. You've dropped some real gems this whole time, but any like parting words or good words of advice or a story or anything you'd want to share with anyone out there, but particular our young up and comers?
Usually like the first thing I always tell to anyone, whether they want to be a fighter, whether they want to be an athlete, whether it's a kid, if I just have like one piece of advice to give to all of them is, I think I said it earlier, everything is within. Like anytime you look externally for fulfillment, your life is going to be tough. So find that peace within, build yourself, whatever that takes, whatever path you need to do that, to build the internal power. Everything on the outside will take care of itself. Control what you can control and allow everything else to fall into place, and it will, and you'll have a great life that way.
There you go. If I had $1 for every time I tried to control something I couldn't control, I might be also that millionaire that
Absolutely.
McDonald's, but we're still learning. Matt, where do we find you? Hit us with Instagram handles, websites, companies you want people to look up, anything you want us to know.
Oh yeah, I do got social media, I guess. I'm the Immortal, Twitter, Instagram, at the Immortal Coffee, for the best coffee you've ever had.
Boom.
We say make excuses, not coffee, or make coffee, not excuses. Sorry. Whatever.
We got you.
Messing up the slogan there. Yeah. I think that's about it. Yeah.
There you go. Bring in the truth, the Immortal. I appreciate you. You're you're a great athlete, but you're such a good human. It was such a pleasure working with you professionally, but it's even more cool to see people I've crossed paths with along the way, go from athletes to entrepreneurs to coaches to leaders to, wearing all these hats, but still just like being really intentional about positive impact. So I see you and I appreciate you. And I thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes. Let's chat again soon.
Anytime.
Thanks, Matt.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.